live. Like I said, we don't want to switch over. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, this is Dr. Mumbi Saraki, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. And Dr. Mumbi is rocking a fro today.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk to her about a few things going on the continent. Y'all, you know, they already telling me about what to get, garlic and all these others. Okay, guys. Well, you know what? I'm gonna ask my wife for some things that she probably made for me today to get rid of this. But that aside from me, those of you who don't know who Dr. Mumbi is, I'm pretty sure you've been seeing. Just say, who's that lady with an African accent coming on the show, making these videos? And well, we get to talk to her a little bit more candidly, like we did before. And for people that don't know who you are, Dr. Mumbi, could you tell maybe some new subscribers who you are, you know, what you do on your show?
Okay, basically, I'm Dr. Mumbi Saraki. I'm reporting live from Nairobi, Kenya, and basically covering everything that happens in Africa because there's so much changing on the continent. There's so much changing among the African nation, and kind of keeping abreast and sharing an alternative, narrative of what's really happening that might not be out there for people to hear.
All right, Dr. Mumbi, let me ask you just one question. Since you've been on YouTube, what's been like the changes you've noticed since your page has been growing?
Well, I've actually noticed that so many of us know what's up. Like the African nation, both African Americans and Africans on the continent. Also, Phil, you have a huge African following. Like Africans are showing you love, and that's also been coming. A lot of African. I mean, we're one nation, but there's this emotional thing that we have of, you Africans sold us out, or some of these things that kind of keep us separate. That's what I feel.
Well, let's talk about that here for a minute, Dr. Mumbi. This Africans, because I seen and I'm not gonna mention the lady's name, but she had made a live stream, and y'all know who probably the lady is. That how she say she didn't want nothing to do with Africans because you sold our ancestors. So you have some black folks that in America that are on that, and
yes.
What is your response to that? To those who feel that way?
Well, first of all, the first thing I want to say is it's much, much, much deeper than that. And, I don't even know if we should get biblical or whatever, the tribe of Ham versus the Negroes, but it's very simplistic to say Africans sold you out, and I really feel that in what is happening right now, when we're in an emergency situation. The world is kind of entering this emergency situation. Africa is rising, and we are like rediscovering our African brothers and sisters in the US and across the diaspora. I really feel that isn't part of the narrative. Maybe there are some small communities, because there's always black sellouts. But to blanketly say it's the whole continent, it's like you'll miss your opportunity to connect with a great move that's happening on the continent, because the young people are awakening to who they are. The young people are actually getting a voice through mediums like social media. The one thing, at least, that is prevalent across the continent is a lot of young people, because a majority of us are under the age of 40, some even under the age of 30. We all have a mobile phone. We're all connecting to YouTube and information. So we're all starting to learn more about each other, because so many lies have been told. But I feel that like we shouldn't, like when you're arguing with your family, like sometimes, and then an intruder comes in, like first you deal with the intruder, you deal with the emergency, and then you get to these issues once we've got ourselves sorted. That's how I feel.
Right. So you said it was the sellouts. Now, one thing a lot of these people don't talk about when they talk about the transatlantic slave trade, they don't speak about the Arabs. Why is it that the Arabs get a pass? Because the Arabs was enslaving black folks before white folks ever was. Why do they get a pass?
Yeah, I think it's because, like just as much as like Christianity has taken a big chunk of Africa, so has Islam. And so there's that thing of, and they've also confused us by saying that the North Africans that we see, while they used to be Negroes, now we think that the North Africans we see were the original North Africans, which they aren't, you know? But it's that whole thing of, we don't know our story. The victor wrote the story. And so the victor has always either erased his atrocities or made himself, you know, kind of hidden. And so we don't really talk a lot about the Arabs, to be honest, even in East Africa, where the original slave trades actually started with the Arabs.
Right. So why do you think we avoid that?
You know what? It's something where because we are so, I don't know, I don't want to sound rude, but I feel like to a certain extent, we're so brainwashed to only see one enemy. Whereas, so we might see like the colonialist as the enemy, but there are several enemies that we need to be aware of that were responsible for getting the African nation where we are today. The second enemy we don't see is our own people who look like us, but who have sold us out. And the third is the Arabs. And what we see is like, okay, so the Arabs, you know, they've mixed so much, like here in Kenya, they've mixed so much in the coastal area. And then with the whole religion of Islam, it's like they've kind of masked the atrocities they committed.
Okay. So I know on this side of the hemisphere, yes, we talk about a lot of the slavery, and it's been extremely horrible. And nobody has done the amount of slavery that has been done here, or the brutality of it. Because even Roots, the new version of Roots, I don't know if you saw that, when Kunta Kinte
No, I haven't seen it yet.
You didn't see it?
No.
Actually, that one was a little bit better on some instances, especially with Kunta Kinte. And he said that when he came over, he said, okay, how many years I got to work? Because and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, back in the day, you know, with the tribes, if you were captured, then you would have to be an indentured servant for 7 years and they let you go, right?
Yes, and then even if you were an indentured servant, we never did the things that the white supremacists did. You know, you weren't raped, you weren't beaten. I mean, you were taken in as part of the family kind of thing, you know, maybe a lower part of the family, but there was never that brutality that came with slavery.
Right. So Kunta Kinte had asked how many years he got to work, because he thought, okay, man, I just do my 7 years and I'm going about my business. But no, it's not what he thought it was, you know, with the white supremacists. Now, we're talking about that. Do a lot of Africans on the continent, maybe West Africans or even some on the East, is that something like, okay, we don't talk about it? Because, you know, like the white supremacists, they try to hide what they do, say, well, we know about it, but we just don't want to talk about that. Now, in the area of the transatlantic slave trade, is it like that over there? Like they don't want to talk about it? Or they just like, well, hey.
They don't want to. I mean, you see, everything has been like whitewashed. So we did, like, before Roots and Kunta Kinte, we didn't even know what the slave trade really looked like. I'm talking about mainly East Africa. And what happens is we don't even know our story. And kind of, you know, they tell us that we were in these mud huts, we were in these villages, and then they came, they brought medicine, they brought education, and they brought religion. So even our own story starts when the colonialism began. That's where our history begins. Before that, everything is erased. So what you're seeing now is that, and then, you know, they got all of us educated in that Western system. So what you're seeing now is like, even the young generation, they're kind of like, why are you still complaining about colonialism? I mean, it was ages ago, like it's over, you know, there's nothing more to it. We're all one. And that's the lie that's been spread. And it's because our history is not taught at the primary or even high school or even university level. So it's only when Africans, and particularly East Africans, when they go and they start seeking their own knowledge, that they discover, whoa, so this is what happened, you know, beyond Malcolm X, beyond, you know, Martin Luther King. They start discovering the John Henrik Clarks and, you know, Dr. Amos and all these other, and then you see Roots. So a lot has been hidden from us. So we haven't understood the full extent of what happened to our own grandparents and what happened to our brothers and sisters in the US.
So, do you feel that a lot of Africans, especially the young ones, and that's what I'm more concerned about, is the youth of
Yeah.
Africa, because the revolution is there. People don't understand it.
Yeah.
That continent is on the brink. I see it coming.
Yes.
It's right there. I know you see it. You live there.
No, it's happening. And I actually wanted to mention, like this week, ironically, there's been so many, there's been a lot of talk of revival, the African spirit being revived. There's been a lot of people declaring, I got videos from Ghana, I got videos from South Africa, and even here in Kenya, where they were starting to speak against, like what happened in 1885 with the Berlin Conference. They started saying that those things it's over. It's a new day for
Dr.
Africa.
Mumi, I hate to interrupt you, just for the audience sake, because some people don't know what the Berlin Conference is. Could you explain that to them?
So basically, in 1885 or 1886, all the Germany, UK, France, even Denmark, US was slightly represented, but not really. Finland, they all met. Portugal, they all met in Berlin, and they carved up Africa. And so they said, that's why you'll see Western Africa is mainly French speaking with the pockets of English. Eastern Africa is mainly British, but then like the Italians got Ethiopia, the Germans got Tanzania, the French also got Rwanda. So everything was partitioned. And then the armies came over and started to, take over the land. But even then, they came up with the strategy of how to invade Africa. And the strategy they came up with is they sent the missionaries and they said, go preach this to the people. Because one thing they said is, we had highly organized societies and we were a very spiritual people. They like to call it superstitious, but they said, we had very organized systems. We had very organized governance. Most of the they were actually nations. Tribes is like, it's like the N-word or like Negroes. It brings it down. But we were actually different nations with kings, with chiefs, with elders. We had very organized social systems. We had very structured like government systems. And our government systems were basically like consensus. So, it's not like democracy where 50% win and then you get it and everyone else suffers. They would debate for months until everyone was on the same page, and then they would make a move. And then they also lied that, the women weren't as discriminated as we hear. Like among the Agikoya, we had the Women's Council. And the Women's Council was very, very instrumental in the passing of leadership, because leadership was generational, et cetera, et cetera. So what they did is they said, take the Bible to them, because these are a spiritual people, and indoctrinate them spiritually first. Then they did almost what happened in the US, where they didn't give us blankets, but where, there were certain epidemics that broke out. And so, like for us, it was a famine. There was a very big famine. And what they said is, if you want food, you have to take off your traditional clothes, get our name, and then we'll allow you to come into the church and get food. So once we'd been indoctrinated like on that level, and don't forget, they killed off our teachers, they killed off our medicine men, and because we had an oral tradition, they killed off, like, it was certain families that passed on that oral tradition. Those guys were taken out. And then now they came in with the education. You see, our education started like literally at birth, where you would be schooled, around the fire. You grow up with your mother if you were a woman and learn how to, learn. For us, we were agriculturists. So we'd learn how to preserve the food. We even had ways of creating fridges underground, you dig and all this stuff, ways of preserving food, ways of cultivating. But what they did is they came for our kids. At 4 years old, they took the kid out of the home and put him in school. And so that just broke our culture, because now you started where the children were now being schooled on the Western way. And the Western education is never to teach you anything but to be a worker, to learn how to, to learn how to count, to learn how to speak their language. So you're never learning anything valuable. So I don't know if that kind of creates a picture of what happened.
Yeah, because even and I'm a firm believer of, and I say this: the American education system is an indoctrination system. Like I said, it doesn't
Totally.
teach you anything at all,
No.
and that's why it was very important to me. Like I said, I have a 4-year-old, and she'll be going to school, and I'm so glad that I have a school here that I can put her in that's educated, through the brothers and sisters, because I'll just have all the stories that I report on and what happens in these
Yeah.
schools. I don't want to send my baby to no school with them folks. I don't.
Yeah.
I said because of what they
Yeah.
doing. Like look, they have
Yeah.
school shootings here in America, okay? And they're shooting up the school, and good and well if it was Tyrone or Man, they'd have came up with some laws. But because this little Billy over here shooting up the school, it's
Yeah.
mental illness. Let me ask you a question about that. So we talking about that. What do people on the continent think about all these school shootings here in America?
We think y'all are crazy.
Well, now don't say
We are
y'all.
just like,
Say
what is
them.
happening? Yeah. I mean, we just think what is happening in America, like, because it literally looks like America is falling apart.
It is.
Yeah, actually it is. So our whole thing is, and that's the main thing, because we all get CNN. So whenever there's a school shooting, CNN, BBC, CNBC will be running that 24/7. So what it's actually, in a way, what it's doing is it's breaking the whole, great America lie that the whole world has been fed. They are losing the narrative on that side. And so what's happening now is that the negative media that used to, where Africa was, they only covered our famines and all of that. What's happening is now the negative media cycle of the mainstream media is starting to affect America, because we're realizing, whoa, America has serious, serious issues.
Right. And I've had a
Yeah.
guy recently write me, Dr. Moonby, about that. And he was saying,
Yeah.
I didn't realize America was that bad. He said, man,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go vacation over there. I think I may go to the UK. I'm not going over there. I'm like,
and
hey,
that's
man,
what's so
you
awesome,
go.
because you guys, like, the American dream was sold so hard, but we saw the American dream of the American white supremacist dream. Mm-hmm. So we never saw like how our brothers and sisters were living. The only brothers and sisters that we saw who looked like us were in the rap videos. So now you have all African, musicians trying to be rappers, dressing their women half naked. And, it's such a battle because that is so against our culture.
Right. So you're talking about the rap music, and like I said, this is the wrong era, because rap music started off as conscious music, if you know the history of hip hop. Right?
Yes, no, we got that at first. Like the conscious music actually really broke out in a lot of Africa, and it's inspired a lot of our original rappers as well to kind of start speaking against the system. But you see, the thing is, like, Africa mimics. You guys are like, I don't know if African Americans realize this, but for so long, we've looked at you guys like our older brothers and sisters. But we've only been told half the story. So we only see, the Bill Cosby, what show was he doing? We only saw that, like we saw the sitcoms, we saw the black movies, but which were few and far between, and the music videos. But that kind of, we've always kind of mimicked you guys,
So you say they were mimic, but a lot of people will say to me, into the Ethiopia trip, where are the invitations?
Yeah.
Why is it that we don't get invitations to come to the continent? I know you do on your page, but why is it we don't get invitations from the different governments, or say, hey guys, outside of Ghana and a few other ones, like, hey guys, come on over. We want to break bread with you. Let's sit down at the table. Let's see if we can work out together. Because people always ask that question to me, because, a lot of people is like, why you want to go to Ethiopia? They're not our people. I say, look, if you are willing to break bread with me and sit down at the table on the continent, I will do that in the spirit of Pan-Africanism.
Because you see, the first thing, remember the very first show I did, and you also covered it, that we shouldn't take that document lightly. I can't remember now, the one where they kept
Memorandum 46.
Yes, like that thing is real. And so what they did is they broke the Pan-African dream. They totally broke that. And so for the last like 55 years, because that's about the time that Africans have had, a quasi independence, we've just been trying to deal with our own black devils, if I could call them that, like our own sold out, presidents and kind of, so that's what we've been dealing with. So the whole Pan-African spirit is dead. But you know what, Phil? If you ask any African Americans, because a lot of them have reached out to me on my show and they say, I came to Kenya. You guys are so friendly. You're so lovely. Like they opened their home to me. Or I went to Ghana. You guys are awesome. So it's just like we haven't had that opportunity. And I think like there shouldn't be that, well, I'm not coming because I haven't been invited. But you guys have to make your presence felt because everybody is trying to make their presence felt. And if you land here, trust me, you'll feel the love. We might be different from you, but you'll feel the love. And I feel that we must realize that there's been a systematic move to keep us separate. Africans, we've been so consumed with problems. I'm going to get aid. We're going to get China to come in. We're going to get, okay, China's not going to get in. We're going to get these deals from the US or we're going to get these deals from the UK. Did you know there was a Republican, I don't know if he's a senator or who was in the Zimbabwe elections, like he flew out to check what was happening. I mean, it's never innocent. So we need to create that mentality. We can do it for ourselves. It might not be an easier road. It might be a longer path, but that's what we need to get. We need to also start electing leaders that are thinking like that. But a lot is being done behind the scenes. Okay. A lot is being done behind the scenes. Yeah.
So Dr. Mumbi, as you was talking, looked like the stream was being played with a little bit. I guess they ain't like that truth. Yeah. So, but ladies and gentlemen, I stream to multiple platforms. So trust me, I can get the video from wherever and re-upload it so we don't miss a thing. The thing is about, you said they need to change the mentality. Why is it people like Managwa in Zimbabwe? Why didn't he say, you know what? I didn't have my time with Mugabe. Why let this young man come in? Let's see what the young kid can do. Well, why they don't want to let go power?
Because they've got so much vested interest. And don't forget, Mnangagwa was, everyone seems to forget that Mnangagwa was Mugabe's deputy. He was his enforcer. He was his right-hand man. For decades. And so people, when he became president, everyone was like, oh, New Zimbabwe. But the first meeting he attended was a white supremacist, G7 meeting in Europe. And the reason he went there was to kind of be like, okay, guys, I've taken over. We're not going to be as radical. Please give us aid. And so what you have to see is a lot of the generation of presidents that's there right now is indoctrinated. They still think the way, they still think our solution is in the West. They still think our solution is in Europe. They still think China has a solution for Africa. They don't want to stop thinking outside the box and thinking most of our people are young. We've got the youngest population ever. We've got a very educated population as well. We've got, strength in our young people. Why can't we've got engineers, but we've still got the Chinese building our roads. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's total madness. And it's because you've got a guy who's in his 70s, who's still, he was raised on that colonial indoctrination. He still thinks the highest point is the Western point.
Well, let me ask you a question.
And I see someone mentioning, all kinds of, they're all in a brotherhood. I don't know how free we are, Phil, but a lot of these presidents are initiated into brotherhoods and secret societies. So that's also what we have to be aware of. They're not there thinking, I've got 1 million, 2 million, 5 million young people, engineers, doctors. Like here in Kenya, we just brought in like several thousand Cuban doctors who we're going to be paying a lot of money to, yet we have about double the number of Kenyan doctors without jobs.
Why? Why would they bring Cubans in and not young people?
You see that's what I mean, and a lot of people said that. So you have to see these some of these decisions don't even make logical sense, and a lot of people were complaining about it, but they were saying, the president came out and he was like, oh, the hospitals are poorly staffed. Kenyans don't want to go to the outreach areas, the areas like close to the Somalia border or whatever, but it's just like, we would rather give a person out there a chance than in here. That's why it's a mental shift that needs to happen.
Now, so let me ask you a question. The Cubans that's coming in, is it the black Cubans or the white ones?
The white ones. I mean, all those ones makes me want to cry. And they're getting houses with pools, with gyms, they're going to be bringing their family in. And it's just like, why is this happening? What is the agenda? And then you realize, okay, Cuban doctors have been shipped to many countries, but what is the agenda? No country just comes. So they're going to get access to our people, to our women, to our men, to our children. Someone wrote to me and said, what if they're conducting a population study of some sort? Who knows?
Well, you know what?
So you see, yeah.
It gets to a point where the people going to have to take, like I said, take their country back. And what I mean by that, the people that say, I'm not going to see no old Cuban doctor. I want my people. Where my doctors at? That's when because the president can't control that. The people say, man, I want you. Go back to where you come from. I'm going to my people. And we need to do that here in America and on the continent. Like, the thing is, we do have a part to play in that. We don't have to go along with all these strategies of the white supremacists and the Zionist Jews. We don't have to go along with their strategy. You know what I'm saying? We have to actually say, no, hell no, we're going to do it this way. Because the people should be pissed off that they come in here getting houses with pools, but you got your own doctors ain't got crap.
And that's why it's also like each of us now has to start taking the responsibility for bringing this system down. And what you're saying is so powerful because we also have that coon mentality. I love that word, the way you say it. But we also have this thing where we think the Cuban...
Oh, man, I'm laughing. Oh, my God. Oh, this is awesome.
I'm learning from you guys. No, but we have to start like,
oh, that's great.
We have to start also changing our minds where I shouldn't think a Cuban doctor is better than my own doctor. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, the brainwashing is where it all needs to come down. And, a lot is happening. Thank God for the internet. Thank God for this information age where people are just being exposed to so much information and they're doing their digging. But because we also have to now start supporting our own, Phil. You know what I mean? Like support our own supermarkets, support our own brands, support our own products because, there's only so much that the government can do.
I agree with you 100%. It's the same message that we have here.